assassin.
Just a humble bounty hunter.
Surprise for you here.
Check it out. What do you think about that?
The critics agree Metal Gear Solid is an absolute masterpiece.
The year is 1999. Hideo Kojima just reinvented what it means to be a video game with Metal Gear Solid by blending his stealth action gameplay with deep cinematic storytelling. Kojima respected his audience enough to tackle real-world parallels and touchy subject matter presented in hours of dialogue and cutscenes. At the same time, MGS didn't lament the fact that it was a video game, but embraced it. Sneaking around, fighting enemies, and battling it out with bosses didn't just add to the story, they were the story. Kojima treated gaming not as an inferior version of movies, he saw it as its own art form, with strengths only a player could feel through a controller in their hands. That's why Metal Gear Solid was imprinted with a distinct style. A style that a painter brings from painting to painting, an author from book to book, a director from film to film. A style that is uniquely theirs, one that audiences flock to in droves to experience. As soon, MGS wouldn't just be another video game, it would be known as a Hideo Kojima game. And oh boy, players would flock. Metal Gear Solid would sell more than 7 million copies worldwide, making it the game to own for a generation of new fans. And over the coming years, those fans would grow to expect great things from Kojima. But all above, they would expect someone. Solid Snake.
This is Snake. I'm here to save you. They're rookie's eyes if I ever saw them. Just a man who's good at what he does.
Snake was a melting pot of every 80s action star Kojima admired. Schwarzenegger, Norris, Stallone, Willis, and most of all, Kurt Russell.
Call me Snake.
Snake was cool, he had one-liners, he knew how to be a ladies' man, and most importantly, he felt invincible. Like you could drop him into any battlefield and somehow he'd make it out alive. There was security in Snake, a feeling that no matter how bad things got, he could get the job done. And millions of players came to love that feeling. Just as quickly as players finished Snake's first adventure, they were already clamoring for the next one. Another mission, another masterpiece, and it had to be Kojima at the helm. Just a year later, they would get their wish.
It was incredible.
That has to be the most awesome thing I've ever seen.
Never seen any video game like it before.
At E3 2000, Kojima went on stage to reveal Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, with one of the most iconic trailers in gaming history. Smarter enemies, living environments, weather systems, first-person aiming, and so much more were all wrapped up in one simple promise. Solid Snake was back, and he looked better than ever. But if you weren't lucky enough to be at E3, there was no YouTube waiting for you at home. This was the early aughts. If you wanted to see Kojima's vision, you had to download it over dial-up internet, tying up your phone line for up to 8 agonizing hours, praying the connection wouldn't crash halfway through. But in the end, it was more than worth it. The trailer didn't show everything, but it showed exactly what fans needed. Metal Gear still had Kojima's fingerprints all over it, dripping with tension and cinematic style. Konami, the game's publisher, plastered his name on every poster, every trailer, and every magazine cover. They treated him like a famous Hollywood director, and why wouldn't they? Kojima had mastered the art of shaping his image. Mysterious, visionary, a genius with a controller in his hands. Just a few words from him, and players would follow him anywhere. And on November 13th, 2001, they finally got the chance. Solid Snake had come back with a vengeance, ready to fight. Who is this?
What's your name? Raiden. Raiden? Strange code name. What are you laughing at?
What's your name?
Raiden.
That's an odd name.
Meet Raiden, Metal Gear Solid 2's actual protagonist, the only character you play as for the entirety of the game, and fans were furious. After years of hype, promises, and trailers showing off Solid Snake, we ended up with this instead. Raiden wasn't exactly what you would call cool. He didn't have the grizzled loner look like Snake. He was young, skinny, with long blonde hair that gets him mistaken for a girl.
What are you... What the...
You're a man?
He wasn't funny or witty. In fact, Raiden was kind of a buzzkill, as none of his jokes ever landed.
Terminal in front of the elevator. A node.
Did you say nerd?
He's not a charming ladies' man like Snake. In fact, he already comes pre-packaged with an annoying girlfriend.
Jack, can you hear me?
Worst of all, he didn't feel invincible. Raiden can't seem to beat the bad guy. He can't save the girl. He can't even stay on his feet half the time. Raiden didn't even have any real combat experience, just hours spent running simulations in VR. Yet somehow he talked like he knew better, gushing about the legendary Solid Snake, and then acting like his VR training made him even better. And because of this, for a long time, fans called Metal Gear Solid 2 the bad one, the black sheep of the series, the one where Kojima went off his rocker. But what they didn't realize was that they were playing right into Kojima's hands. The real Metal Gear Solid 2 was the one he had trapped them inside all along. By the end of the game, reality begins to melt around Raiden. His training, his mission, his support, all of it gone. Nothing makes sense anymore. Everyone is gathered together in one final standoff. The gallant hero, the devious villain, the treacherous henchman, the double agent, and even Snake himself. Everybody has their guns pointed to each other, trying to figure out just what in the world is going on. Then, the curtain gets lifted.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
What's wrong with you?
Don't worry, it's a game. It's a game just like usual.
You'll ruin your eyes playing so close to the TV.
None of it was real. The entire story of Metal Gear Solid 2 was just one giant simulation, a test called the S3 Plan, a simulation designed by a hyper-advanced group of AI known as the Patriots, designed to prove that they could recreate the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, not with soldiers or guns, but with information alone. Every character, every death, every betrayal, perfectly stage managed for the Patriots' grand experiment. A group of terrorists with supernatural abilities seizing a military base. 2 hostages dying under mysterious circumstances. A cyborg ninja with unclear loyalties. And a madman trying to unleash a new type of Metal Gear. None of the characters knew that they were following the Patriot script flawlessly. But there was one more thing that they needed. A new hero, a new Solid Snake, and Raiden was the only one who could play the part. Why? He was a blank canvas, a shapeless form the Patriots could mold into anything they wanted, and it worked. The S3 Plan was a resounding success. As you see, the events of MGS2 weren't just about recreating a mission, they were a microcosm, a miniature model of human society itself. If the Patriots could orchestrate something this massive, this easily, what's to stop them from controlling everything? Well, everything could stop them. Because at the same time, something new was taking shape. The early 2000s were when the internet first started to become accessible to the general public. It was rough, disorganized, and painfully slow, but for the first time, any amount of information you wanted was at your fingertips. The way we passed knowledge down to future generations was changing, no longer through history books or stories, but through blogs, chat rooms, and forums. And then came the flood. More and more information poured online, faster than anybody could make sense of it. Petty slander, celebrity gossip, tabloid drama. What used to be throwaway distractions were now treated with the same weight, if not more, than news of war, genocide, or systematic collapse. And the worst part? None of it had to be real. Anybody could make up anything. As long as it sounded real, it became real. At first, it didn't seem like a crisis. After all, the information was scattered, buried across hundreds of thousands of poorly maintained websites. It was chaotic, fragmented, sloppy, but the Patriots understood something that most people didn't. This was only temporary. They feared a future where every lie, half-truth, and manufactured narrative could be organized and delivered directly to every single person, presented right alongside the facts as if they were equal. One lie on its own isn't dangerous, but when they begin to be collected, repeated, shared over years, it starts to shape how someone thinks, how they speak, how they see the world, and there is comfort in these lies. Lies as harmless as "I was abducted by aliens" to ones far more dangerous, like "maybe all the problems in my life can be blamed on a single race of people." That's easier to accept than admitting you were wrong, easier than facing the truth. The life is a whole lot more complicated than your narrowing worldview, but it's easier to want to feel validated than challenged. And so, people find others who believe the same thing. They form a bubble, one that as it grows wider, drifts farther from everyone else. Inside, they only share what information supports their beliefs. Nobody's right, but nobody's technically wrong either, because no one ever gets invalidated. Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community afraid of a larger forum.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
Of course, the S3 plan and the Patriots are all fictional, but the threat they warn us about, that part isn't. Or I guess it's not them warning us, instead one man, using their voices to share his devil. Hideo Kojima's devil. A fear born from people like you and me.
1999!
Metal Gear Solid is an absolute masterpiece.
Metal Gear Solid was a bigger success than Kojima could have ever imagined. Overnight, he was flooded with new fans all over the world. People who didn't just enjoy Kojima's work, they attached themselves to it. An escapism that pulled them away from the real world's problems and dropped them into one of spies, action, political intrigue, and alternate history, all through a controller in their hands. But more than anything, he gave them someone to pretend to be. Someone who made life's problems feel trivial. Someone who felt invincible. Named Solid Snake. Kojima watched as that attachment grew for some into something unhealthy. Snake wasn't just a character to them anymore. He wasn't just their pillar to lean on. They didn't just love Snake. They needed to be him. But that version of Snake, it was never real. Because for a grizzled 80s action hero, Snake is surprisingly vulnerable. In Metal Gear Solid, he talks openly about his loneliness, about how everyone close to him dies by just being near him, about his fear of becoming the same cold, empty killer his father was. It's a fear he grapples with throughout the entire series. But why are these fans ignoring the real version of Snake? Well, who would you rather pretend to be, a depressed, lonely war veteran, or a badass, womanizing action hero? Travis Bickle or a James Bond? Of course, it's always going to be the second, even if that version is just a convenient lie. A lie made out of parts of the truth. A version of Snake shaped by desire, not reality. A blank canvas, a shapeless form fans could mold into anything they wanted. People who wanted to become their version of Solid Snake so desperately that they refused to acknowledge themselves. They ignored the world, they ignored their problems. Their sense of individuality began to erode, replaced by thoughts, opinions, and beliefs that weren't their own. Instead, they clung to a self-idealized version of a fictional character. Hideo Kojima saw this, and it terrified him. But I mean, these are just a handful of isolated fanatics. They're not a real threat. But the actual one is what comes next, when the internet gives them a place to find each other, to connect, to share only the parts of the truth that match their fantasy. They'll form communities, self-contained and self-reinforcing. Nobody is right, but nobody is wrong either, because nobody is invalidated. A bubble that only grows larger and drifts further and farther away from reality. Sound a little familiar? So when those fans came back to Kojima, demanding a sequel, demanding more of their comfortable lie, Kojima knew he couldn't give it to them, because if he did, he'd only be feeding the obsession. So instead, he gave them themselves.
That has to be the most awesome thing I've ever seen.
It started at E3 2000. Kojima revealed Metal Gear Solid 2 with a now infamous trailer. It showed Snake as the only playable character, a demo built entirely around him, not a single hint of the real protagonist behind a mask. Kojima created Raiden as a mirror for the player, and he wasn't subtle about it. Raiden's training came entirely from simulations, literal recreations of the first Metal Gear Solid. He idolizes Snake, sees him as the ultimate hero, convinced he can become Snake by imitating him. At the start, we even give Raiden our name and birthday. He's not just our reflection, he's us. But the most telling detail, Raiden's past. Forced into warfare as a child soldier, dubbed Jack the Ripper, Raiden killed without understanding why. After the war, he was brought home to the US, rehabilitated, rebranded, and told he was normal. But instead of facing what he had done, Raiden just pretended none of it ever happened. He pushed the trauma away, hoping distance would erase it. And what was left behind when his past was gone? A blank slate. An empty shell. Even Rose, his girlfriend, says Raiden's apartment looked abandoned. No books, no posters, no personality, nothing real. Instead, he filled that emptiness with a single obsession, becoming Solid Snake. Because in Raiden's mind, Snake was perfect, invincible, a hero with no demons, no past, no pain. Just cool, just strong, just uncomplicated. Exactly the kind of comfortable lie the Patriots needed. Raiden's emptiness made him the ideal candidate for the Patriots' S3 plan. He was a blank canvas, one with just a little direction. A few recreated missions, a few lies in his ear, could be molded into his dream role. And voila, Metal Gear Solid all over again. By the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, Raiden has completed his mission, but he's broken. Everything he thought he knew has crumbled. His past, his purpose, even his identity. What part of his life was real? Was any of it real? And how do you even believe in anything in a world built on those lies? And that's when Snake returns.
No one quite knows who or what they are. The memories you have and the role you were assigned are burdens you had to carry. It doesn't matter if they were real or not. That's never the point.
Snake doesn't offer Raiden an escape. He offers him something more important. A choice. In a world drowning in noise, lies, confusion, and easy answers, you have to choose what's worth believing in. Not what's most comforting. Not what feels safest. Because if you don't, you become hollow. You end up like Raiden, or the fans who only saw Snake as a perfect hero. People clinging to a fantasy, building echo chambers, chasing invincibility, and forgetting to think for themselves. But Snake says, there's another way.
Listen, don't obsess over words so much. Find the meaning behind the words, then decide.
Decide for myself?
And whatever you choose will be you. Choose your own legacy. It's for you to decide.
And that's what Kojima tells us. Don't retreat into a lie. Don't escape into someone else's story. Write your own. Choose your own values. Live in the real world. And leave something behind that's worth it.
By the way, what is that?
Dog tags.
On the dog tags is the name we gave Raiden at the beginning of the game. Our name.
Anyone you know?
No, never heard the name before. I'll pick my own name. And my own life. I'll find something worth passing on.
Raiden is no longer the player, and we are no longer Raiden, because we are two different people, with our own names, our own identities, and our past to make sense of and leave behind. Metal Gear Solid 2 was Kojima's message, a way to put the series, and the obsession around it, to rest, to leave the world with his devil, his nightmare, as a warning.
The attack on the Capitol
harvested data from about
as the stock soared, the fake images of the
loneliest generation.
I know it's cliche to say Kojima predicted this, so I won't. He didn't foresee our current social media hellscape back in 2001, before Facebook, Twitter, or even MySpace, because the truth is, it's worse than he could have ever imagined. You don't even have to pick the lies from the truth anymore. An algorithm does that for you. It feeds you what you want to hear, based on mountains of data it scraped because you clicked I agree on a privacy policy so long, it would take you 12 days to read. Now, lies don't even need a source. Thanks to AI, images and videos no longer equal proof. Reality can be fabricated, warped, rewritten by anyone, a bored teenager, a bad actor, a politician, and there's no plan to stop it. And why would there be? The billionaires developing and profiting from this tech, they're the ones running the show. We all see it happening. Social media is tearing us apart, both socially and politically. The idea of being moderate or even independent has hit an all-time low. There are no conversations anymore, just extremes. And those extremes become our identities, making it impossible to talk to anyone who doesn't already agree with us. Obsession born from lies, fed by algorithms, is killing us. Not just metaphorically, literally killing us. Kojima's nightmare didn't just come true, it made itself comfortable. And the hopeful answer Snake gave us in Metal Gear Solid 2, it's no longer enough. Kojima knew we needed something else. Not a warning, but a solution. The world of Death Stranding is broken and divided. Humanity clings to survival after the arrival of BTs. Ghost-like apparitions that haunt the world. Alone, they're harmless, but when they come into contact with a human corpse, they trigger a void out, a catastrophic explosion capable of leveling entire cities. The few who survived retreated underground, scattered far apart, sustained by automated bunkers that generate everything they need: food, water, medicine, chemicals. With the internet gone, communication is nearly impossible. The fear of connection is too great. Even when people speak to delivery porters via hologram, they rarely give their names, only their roles: the musician, the engineer, or the junker. Kojima imagined Death Stranding as a metaphor for the world we live in now, a society fractured by fear and isolation, a place where we live in bubbles, disconnected not just physically, but emotionally, afraid of being hurt, misunderstood, or invalidated. And yet, each of us still has something to offer: a skill, a story, a creation. But when we stay locked away, our talents never reach anyone else. Imagine if doctors only spoke to other doctors, if they never shared knowledge with chemists to develop new medicine, or engineers to build life-saving machines. Progress wouldn't stop necessarily, but it would slow, shrink, hit invisible walls we couldn't break through alone. And this is how the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And that's where you come in. In Death Stranding, your job is to reconnect the world. Organizations have discovered new technology, the chiral network, a kind of reborn internet made possible by the BTs. It's not the solution, but it's a start. A way for people to shake off the fear of connection and begin rebuilding. But it doesn't come easy. To activate the network, you have to physically link each isolated outpost by carrying cargo across brutal terrain. Mountains, rivers, storms, thieves, and swarms of BTs. One wrong step and hours of progress vanish. And even when you do make it, the people you help are cold, dismissive, ungrateful. They won't give you supplies. They just want what you brought and nothing more. Even when you're exhausted, low on ammo, batteries are at 0, they still send you back out there without so much as a thank you. The first 10 to 20 hours of Death Stranding can feel brutal, especially if you try to do everything alone. But when you do finally connect a region to the chiral network, something changes. You unlock tools, ladders, charging station vehicles, catapults, and even entire highways. But most importantly, other people's tools begin to appear in your world, in yours and theirs. It might not sound like much, but every little thing someone leaves behind for you can turn the impossible into routine. A bridge over a canyon that would have taken hours to cross, an umbrella station that lets you wait out deadly timefall, a safe house for when you're on the brink of death, or my favorite, a messy chain of zip lines that, with a bit of extra effort, can carry you from the base of the game's tallest mountain all the way to the summit in minutes, an achievement that sounds impossible when you're first starting out. And none of it would be possible without the way Death Stranding handles its online systems. You can't hurt other players, you can't troll them, destroy their buildings, or leave traps in their world. You can't even leave dislikes, only likes. Hundreds of them to show how grateful you are. And trust me, you will feel grateful. A lot. Because even though you never see another player, never hear their voice, never read a single message, you feel them. You feel them on that bridge that saved you, in that generator someone placed right where your bike ran out of juice, in the rope left hanging on the cliff where you thought you were stuck. And somehow, that's more connection than I felt in most MMOs or squad-based shooters combined. A sense of connection that pushes you forward, no matter how brutal the world of Death Stranding becomes. Because even when you're alone, there's always someone out there, leaving a ladder, building a bridge, or giving you a little nudge to keep going. That's why Death Stranding isn't Kojima saying, "I told you so." It's not a grim victory lap about his worst fears coming true. It's his solution to his devil. The original meaning of communication is to care and feel for others, but technology has carried us in the wrong way. Kojima once said in an interview, "Technology would only help us become enriched in our lives, but it's the way we use technology." I'm not saying that social media is a mistake. What I fear most is that people will be so afraid of using social media or playing a game. People should know that being online is not a bad thing. It just needs some tweaks. I just want them to think how we could use this technology to be better. In a world filled to the brim with amazing technology, tools that have already brought us so much good, it's easy to forget just how powerful it really is. We can talk to literally anyone across the planet, access news, art, games, and stories from voices we never would have heard otherwise. We can design, share, collaborate, even build something like this video you're watching now. Without the internet, I never would have found my passion for literally all of my interests and skills you are seeing on screen right now. So it would be which for me to stand here and tell you, in Kojima's voice, that the internet is only a force of destruction. Because, like he says, it doesn't have to be. The internet, algorithms, even AI, they can catapult us into a new age. One of creativity, connection, and progress unlike anything we've seen before. But only if we refuse to let it control us. Only if we stop using it to divide, distract, or dehumanize. We can't just be a we. You have to be a you. Then can we finally come together, different, flawed, and unique, working towards the betterment of ourselves.